Good evening, everyone. It is nice to be back. Today is January 6th. Yes, the infamous January 6th. 3 years after the fact. 3 years since the quote unquote insurrection, which was more of a mostly peaceful protest. Anyways, we are back. We have been on hiatus for about 3 months. So, ever since October, and we are coming back. We had a bunch of stuff originally lined up for today. We were going to talk about firearms with our underexperienced Dale. But this week we had a little bit of misfortune in the state that I'm from. And we're going to talk about that. We are also going to be talking about stolen valor because there are people that still have not learned this lesson. We are going to find out if you say you served and you didn't actually serve. Before we get into everything, I want to introduce the two co-hosts for today because everyone seems to be fucking off for the day. First, I will introduce our main and most reliable co-host since the start, Dale. Say hello, Dale.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I return to you once more from the icy, frozen wastes of Canada, coming to you live from Montreal. And yeah, on this January 6th, the third anniversary of a fiery but mostly peaceful protest, to quote CNN. Welcome to the show.
And we also have Stoner, who appeared in the very, very, very first episode of the Anarchist Transmission before it was ever even called the Anarchist Transmission, when we discussed the gun bill that they had tried to pass back in 2022. Please say hello, Stoner.
Good day, and
So it was Stoner who was on the very first the fabled first episode of this
Yes,
podcast.
the
What,
fabled first episode of this podcast.
what was it called? Did it have a name back then, or was it just nameless?
It was pretty much just nameless. I had been toying around with names for quite a while,
Mhm.
but you know, at the time I couldn't get anyone interested in it, and every time I had tried to get people to come on as co-hosts, everyone fucking flaked except for Stoner. Oh my god, it's Luna. Hello, Luna. So everybody, this is Luna, our first episode back this year. She is here. She's in the flesh, and I hope she's dressed from the state that doesn't exist. Say hello, Luna.
Yes, I'm here. I can't confirm the second. And yep, Ohio doesn't exist.
Just make sure not to pull up her Twitter, and we'll be fine.
No, we are not going to make that mistake again. I swear to myself I am not going to get this channel banned.
Uh, I may or may not still be in bed.
Okay, well
That's
that's
fine.
that's kind of fun. Anyways, so we have some interesting shit to talk about today, and since Luna wasn't here when I first started, I'll go over this again. We've got two main topics for today. We've got stolen valor because of an idiot that I ran into on Twitter today, and we have the Perry, Iowa shooting, which again is in the state that I'm from. So we're gonna go over the stolen valor first, and to do that, I need to open up to show everyone the Twitter. So Rocky here, he he quote tweeted the guy that is acting as if he acting as
Sir,
if he is
Military.
military. Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm still trying to get my bearings back. So let's read this. It says, I graduated Special Forces training in 2005 as a Raider. I was allowed to train beside SEAL Team 6. In my team at the time was number 3, but my team's also the most number 1 ranked or one of the top 3 ranked in the entire United States military.
Is this the new version of that military copy pasta?
I wish. This guy is obviously not right in the head. I will go to his Twitter and I will show you. Oh, hey, I just got a message from Kenzie. Kenzie says, sorry, I don't think I have time, but I do want to join again sometime. That's fine. No issues, Kenzie. So, Caleb here has been arguing with Alabama Marine since pretty much yesterday.
It's about the female drill sergeant.
Drill instructor. Drill sergeants are Army. Marine Corps has drill instructors.
Drill instructor. Excuse me.
Is there any meaningful difference between the two, or is it just a naming thing?
It's kind of a naming thing, but you also have to remember that the Marine Corps is not, or at least it's not supposed to be, an occupational force, which means we have to do things more so at the naming structure of the Navy. Even though we have Army-style ranks, we have naval traditions. So in the Navy, you don't even have sergeants. Sergeants don't exist. The grade exists, but it's not called sergeant. It's called petty officer. And it starts at petty officer 3rd class, goes to petty officer 2nd class, then petty officer 1st class. These are your average NCOs, but the petty officer 3rd class is actually the equivalent to a corporal.
And they couldn't exactly call it drill petty officer because someone may take that as a command instead.
Yes. So we have drill instructors. And the far right side says, my biggest worry about the draft would be that when confronted with this thing, I just uncontrollably laugh in its face. Listen, I have seen the most manly men in their late 20s show up on the Yellow Footprints talking all this shit about, I'll knock a person out. And the second they step foot on those Yellow Footprints, they are the biggest sissies on the face of the fucking planet. I don't care if the drill instructor is 4'5" and a female. You are not going to be punching someone because you are going to be scared out of your mind. By the time you get dropped from your preparatory platoon into your actual boot camp platoon, you are going to be so extremely tired, you're not going to have the energy to even think, I'm going to punch someone. Because, I mean, the first time you sleep after you get to boot camp is 3 days after you get to boot camp.
Really?
Oh, yeah. You are so extremely sleep deprived. And then that first night you get sleep, you wake up like 4 hours later. So you're operating after 72 hours on 4 hours of fucking sleep. You're not going to have the mental capacity to do jack squat. Anyways,
is that intentional? Like, are they
Oh yeah,
intentionally sleep
it's
depriving?
it it's intentional because by the time you get dropped into your training platoon, they want you pliable. They don't want you broken, but they want you pliable. They want you obedient. And the best way to achieve survival in boot camp as a recruit is to shut off your brain and just follow orders. If 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 you don't, you're not going to get enough rest at all throughout boot camp. At least not through the first phase.
I see.
Talk amongst yourselves for a second. I will be right back.
As someone
All right.
who's been
Go
that
ahead.
sleep deprived, I guarantee you my ass would be like, okay, just I'll, I'll do whatever. Just let me fly by fly under the radar so that I can just get my sleep.
Yeah. Thankfully, I'm not. I don't believe I have ever had to go 72 hours without sleep. So I'm happy for that fact. And also, something should be mentioned a bit unrelated to this, but we will be having another co-host join us at some point during the show, and
Yes,
that will be Molly.
Molly
She
will be
just
back
had
soon.
Yeah, she was here, but a few minutes before the show started, she said she had to go talk to her grandmother. And of course, anyone with a grandmother would understand that you want to go talk to your grandmother. So once she's done talking to her grandmother, she will come back and join us.
Yeah. So,
Thank
anyways, um, you get no sleep the first 3 days. Um,
But,
no sleep the first 3 days. Throughout those first 3 days, you're collecting your clothing that you're going to be wearing for 3 months. You are getting medical screenings. You're getting vaccinations. You're filling out your initial final will and testament. Uh,
mhm.
you are filling out your insurance paperwork for TRICARE. You're filling out your tax forms, all that crap. You quite literally have no processing power left by the time you get to your training platoon.
So once that's initially over, though, do you then get enough sleep to function more and be less
So
obedient, or are you still just
what
functioning on like the lowest amount of sleep possible?
what they do is they create what's called Firewatch. So
Mm-hmm.
each platoon has a roster of people in the platoon,
Mm-hmm.
and every hour, 4 people have to be awake. One person has to be stationed at the door, and the other 3 have to be cleaning the squad bay. And this is an all night thing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are the first watch or the last watch, you pretty much get a full night's sleep. You either go to bed at the same time as everyone else and get up an hour before, or you go to bed an hour after everyone else and get up with everyone else.
And what happened? Like, I assume what happens if like everything is spotless by the time when other people still have to clean? They just clean over nothing. Like,
It's just constant fucking cleaning.
hmm,
You
I
go
see.
over it and over it and over it. There are weekly pickups for laundry, and there are recruits that are assigned. Well, not recruits. People that have dropped their packs. They are constantly just assigned places while they're trying to pay off the bus ticket that they're going to have to buy to get home because they didn't want to finish training.
Hmm, fair enough. And
Uh,
how many people are going to be in each Like, for these Firewatch, how many people are we dealing with?
There are 4 people on Firewatch at all times.
But what I mean is, but how many people in total are there in your group?
In the platoon,
Oh yeah, in the platoon.
it depends on the season. So in the summer, you can have anywhere from 80 to 110 recruits in a platoon, and in the fall, winter, and spring, you can have anywhere from 50 to 80 recruits in a platoon.
Huh.
My
What?
platoon started in March, like the last week of March, and before the end of the first week in our training platoon, we lost 16 or 17 Marines, or 16 or 17 recruits. By the time we graduated, we were down to like 61 recruits.
Dang. And what is there a reason why it changes seasonally, or is this just because less people apply?
Well,
Or
what happens is you get the biggest influx of recruits immediately after school ends. So June is the biggest influx. And you're going to have people that are in the Pool E program, aka the DEP, the Delayed Enlistment Program, just sitting there waiting for a spot to open up in boot camp so that they can go. And that's going to happen all summer into the fall. And then once the fall arrives, everyone thinks, oh, well, it's going to be cold, so I don't want to go. I want to stay inside. They're going to drop out of the DEP if they haven't gotten to boot camp yet. I enlisted during winter. I went immediately after Christmas and signed the paperwork. And then I didn't leave until March.
Right.
So I went during winter. But I also was not fresh out of high school when I joined.
Right.
I had just turned 20 when I joined. Anyways, so this nice gentleman, Caleb, hails from Aiken, South Carolina.
The familiar place.
Yes. The home place of one of our server mates. He wanted to argue with Alabama Marine, and me and Alabama Marine are not close, but we don't have any problems with each other. And this is where it starts. I come from grunts, a long line of them. I go to old guys and grumpy old men like you at the research and what you do in the field to help the brass make the tough decisions. Just because I serve between 2 and 4 years doesn't make me any less qualified, does not mean I'm off meds, does not mean I need medication. Yeah, well, it's not just that. Nothing. There is no punctuation. There is no semblance of grammar or syntax in this man's fucking tweets. And Grumpy comes in and says, my man, the only reason I haven't gone off on you is because your bio says you're autistic. I'm about to say fuck it and open all the way up. If you have an issue with what I quote tweeted, then click on that and tell them. You've got the wrong guy here. And here's where things get really friggin' stupid. Tell me something. Have you ever heard of Lieutenant Major General Caleb Matthew Burrell? There is no such thing as a Lieutenant Major General. There's Lieutenant General. There's Major General. But there's no Lieutenant Major General. And in fact, if you've learned anything about how the officer ranks in the Air Force, Marine Corps, and Army are structured, you know that there's second lieutenant, first lieutenant, captain, major, lieutenant colonel, colonel, brigadier general, major general, lieutenant general, then general. Those are all 10 ranks for the officer side in the Air Force, the Army, and the Marine Corps. Now,
Right.
the Navy is fucky. They don't do anything the same as anyone else. Who cares? I know those officer ranks too, though.
Yeah, I watch Star Trek.
Yeah, but see, they never mentioned Lieutenant Junior grade in Star Trek up until Voyager, okay?
Mm.
What is Lieutenant Junior grade the equivalent of in
Uh,
non-Navy speak?
Lieutenant Junior grade is the equivalent of a
Captain?
a first lieutenant.
Ensign?
That's
Lieutenant
O2.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I had to think.
All right, so back to this fucker.
Yeah, so this guy, he's like, Bama Marine 03 wanted to make a big issue about female officers. This is not a female officer. Look at her collars. She's got sergeant stripes. 3 stripes and fucking cross rifles. That is a sergeant. That is an E5. That is not an officer. Do not call enlisted men officers. We work for a living. For Christ's fucking sake. So Bama Marine 03 wanted to make a big issue about female officers, and then he started letting them to me because I went to ROTC with 2 of them, and I was under one's command in boot camp while under our drill sergeant Kenny Carnes. Buddy, Marine Corps doesn't have drill sergeants. And here's where things, really get fucky. I mean, let's see. You might know a little bit about the military, but take it from somebody that was taught by actual Marines and Green Berets and people that come from Desert Storm or World War II, Vietnam, Korea, and Desert Storm. Take what? Take what from you? You've said nothing. You've said absolutely nothing since that crap about how the sergeant in the picture is a fucking officer. You absolute imbecile.
So he mentions Green Berets. Green Berets are Army, correct?
Yes, they are.
What exactly are they?
Think the equivalent of SEALs. Now people are gonna say Army Rangers. Army Rangers are kind of the replacement for the Green Beret as of late. But right. Everyone had their own version of the SEALs into the 90s. For the Army, it was the Green Beret. For the Marine Corps, it was Delta Force.
So are they kind of like the Army's version of shock troops?
Yeah, they're more so just the Army's version of special forces. The only shock troops that there are is the Marine Corps. We are the shock troops. We're the first ones in.
All right.
Special forces are, small missions, rescue, assassinations, that sort of shit.
I see.
Shock troops are what you do to instill fear in the nation.
Hmm.
Okay, Dale, you remember your World War One history?
Yep.
You remember the stormtroopers from World War One?
Yep.
Those are shock troops.
Right.
And we've talked about this before. How the Marine Corps is called Devil Dogs by the Germans, Teufelhunden because of the Battle of Bellawood, even though that's all fucking propaganda. We've been called shock troops ever since World War One. So this is where things get fun. I graduated Special Forces training in 2005. As a Raider, I was allowed to train beside SEAL Team 6. In my team at the time was number 3, but my team's also the most number 1 ranked, or one of the top 3 ranked in the entire United States military.
Oh wow! So he's not only his team wasn't even the number 1 rank; it was the most number 1 rank. Wow.
Before I get into continued bullcrap from him, I want to point something out. So to be an officer, to generally, most SEAL teams are comprised of at least 2 officers. Most Special Forces teams are comprised of at least 2 officers and at least 3 enlisted.
Mm-hmm.
This guy has already claimed to have been a general, and I'll show you that. But look at his bio. High-functioning autistic adult needing help to get on my feet, go to college, so I can find my place in this world. What does an officer need? To commission?
College.
College
Degree.
or academy.
Mm-hmm.
Or you have to pass through the enlisted ranks and get to at least E4 and then put in a package to commission. If you do that, you can go one of 3 routes from that point. There's one route that's not open to just the basic person.
Mm-hmm.
The basic person cannot go to officer candidate school.
Oh.
You can't do it. You have to go either to college or you have to go to an academy. But as a former enlisted person, you can go to officer candidate school. I've seen plenty of officer candidate school transfers from E5, and in fact, one of our server mates had tried to transfer as an E5 when he served with me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so kid never went to college, never joins the military. And I'll show that. Let's go back. Okay, I'm calling it bullshit. Let's look at his response. What are you, under a rock? Ever since I stepped down for my team, there's still the best damn team in the military. It's not bullshit. It's absolute truth, you dummy. And where did it go?
Seems he ran afoul of a local Texan, and we all know that's never a good idea.
You realize there are many here that have actually served, done all that high-speed, low-drag stuff you can only dream of having done, right? Again, you're chock full of shit and nothing but a Sierra Victor dick suck. You still refuse to answer the MOS question. And then instead of, telling us what his MOS was, I bet none of y'all served with Brandon Tyler Webb or Major Brandon Tyler Webb, who actually gave me my commemorative knife from serving as a part Operation Iraqi Freedom.
That's pretty interesting. He not only served with Brandon Tyler Webb, but he also served with Major Brandon Tyler Webb. This person seems to know a lot of military people, clearly.
Yeah, so I had gone through a lot of this stuff. Let's see. MOS. Strategic Specialist. That's not an MOS. He says he's a strategic specialist. That is not an MOS. Not in the officer ranks, not in the enlisted ranks. It does not exist. There has to be a designator. He's not giving us a designator.
What does Sierra Victor mean? Oh, right, Stolen Valor.
Uh-huh.
I get it. Is that like the term most military people use for Stolen Valor?
I don't know. Oh, hey, look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Just strategic specialist. Let's see. I'm not a damn stupid R word. There was a Major Oglesby that actually couldn't believe that General Buchanan actually made me acting general whenever he retired. He even tried to be insubordinate, so General Buchanan and I decided he needed to have his head examined for battle fatigue. Battle fatigue hasn't been a thing since World War I.
What is battle fatigue?
Battle fatigue is the same thing as PTSD. It's gone through phases of renaming. So in World War I, it was battle fatigue. In World War II, it was shell shock.
Right.
In Korea and in Vietnam, we moved into battle stress disorder. Then in Desert Storm and Desert Shield, we finally moved into PTSD. And this is where we've come to understand it's not just military people that suffer PTSD, and it's not just combat related. It's anything that can be stressful causes post-traumatic stress disorder. A traumatic and stressful thing has happened to you. It's not battle fatigue.
Right.
Let's see. My own father-in-law, Major James David Burrell, the third junior.
What?
They just stopped adding. They just stopped adding numbers after the third.
Is it possible that this is just somebody trolling?
No,
because
he's been explicitly told by Stolen Valor on Twitter that he needs to step away from the friggin' keyboard. And he just keeps going.
There's a Stolen Valor Twitter account?
Yes. There is a guy on Twitter that has for years been researching and investigating people that have been reported to him as possible, not Stolen Valor cases specifically, but possible impersonators. Because Stolen Valor itself is a very specific thing. You have to claim very specific things, and you have to be trying to gain some sort of monetary value out of those claims. Let's see. Drakena just popped into the chat. Said, hey, rough to be honest. Sorry I couldn't make it tonight. The past few days have been rough, but I think I'm finally getting over the sickness and funk that came with it. I hope it goes well. Thank you, Drakena. I hope you're listening in at some point soon. We want you to get better. Okay, then, I'm still looking for it. But he very specifically said that he had 3 stars.
This is like absurd. Like,
yes.
There's no other word for it than absurd. Oh, is that the Stolen Valor post? There.
Oh well, this is the account, Stolen Valor 1. He's the one that told Caleb here to chill out, to just back away from the keyboard and leave. So Alabama Marine was like, that's not an MOS. Were you an 0621, 12A, 27Q? And Caleb here is like, do you even know what it's like to build a mission? Do you even know what it's like to build a mission in the ground up? You know what it's like to build a mission from the ground up? Do you know?
He's just saying the same thing.
I know.
6
I know.
times.
I've done a lot of stuff. Everything from build bases, build mobile bases, all the way to working with science and engineering and explosive. I've also flown as reconnaissance before. I don't remember the exact number of the MOS because I was fighting for my life. I had a traumatic experience. No one forgets their MOS. No one.
This person has watched one too many Rambo movies.
I was originally designated an 0656 0656, which was a data network security specialist. By the time I got to the fleet, actually, by the time I got to school, they had merged 0651 data network specialist and 0656 data network security specialist into one MOS. So I went from being an 0651 to being, from being an 0656 to being an 0651. I have not forgotten my MOS. Let's see, there's all of comm starts with a 06 designator. Let's see. Where did you go to boot camp? What was your MOS? What unit did you serve with? Where did you go to OCS? Intelligence and Research Airborne Battalion and Infantry. That's not... That's not how this works, buddy. As this guy just... He's lost the plot. Oh, here it is.
Yeah.
Here it is. I started out as a 4-star general, and then there was like one incident years ago where an insubordinate officer decided to strike his commanding officer, and I was commanding officer, so I got demoted to the 3 stars. Big whoop.
Ah, yes, because every 4-star general just, started out as a 4-star general, and then when someone hits you, you lose a star.
Yeah, no, that's...
What?
Bro, they straight up punched the star right off of him.
Yeah, how could they? Look at all this stuff he's done. how does this person exist?
It's
How?
Aiken, South Carolina.
Fair, actually, you know what? Fair point. Fair fucking
It's the
point.
meth capital of South Carolina, okay?
Yes. Yes.
And I swear, Z, I am not shitting on you.
Yeah.
This
We're not
is just
shitting on. Yeah. We're not shitting on you, Z, but we are shitting on fucking Meth Town. Alright.
I agree with them.
Yeah, Z says she agrees with you.
Yeah.
thank you, Stoner. So here's where Stolen Valor steps in. It was 3 hours ago. Said, bro, step away from the keyboard for a few days.
Yeah, probably the right response.
After me and Alabama Marine, we actually tagged Stolen Valor to come in and just look at the absolute shit show this guy has laid out before all of us. This person gives me a headache. And, you look at the account. You look at the profile picture.
Yeah.
This person is not even in their 40s.
Dang.
They look a little bit beaten down, but they're definitely not in their 40s yet.
Mm-hmm.
I look beaten down, but I'm certainly not in my 40s. Yet. Yes. Yes. Coda says I'm not in my 40s yet. 5 years. We got 5 years. Less than 5 years now. 4 years and 10 months. 4 years, 10 months, and 3 days.
Don't worry, I
Also,
won't make you feel. I won't make you feel older by saying how many years I have left until 40.
Yeah, let's see. You're 26, so you've got 14 years.
26.
I've only got.
Damn, I've gotten even younger.
Oh,
I've
okay,
only got
fine.
11.
28, 12.
Yeah. Also, I think it's worth pointing out can you scroll back up to his profile
Picture?
Yeah. So not necessarily his picture, but this screen. This
The bio?
person has been on Twitter for 9 years, 9 whole years, and only has 464 followers.
Okay.
What are you doing?
To be fair,
Yeah.
with my last account before I nuked it back in 2021, I had not broken 500. And I had that account since 2010.
Fair enough.
So I mean, I get it. You generally expect accounts to gain followers over the years. That account didn't, and I've still been struggling over the past 2 years to hit 500 on my account. I'm just shy. I am just shy of 500 on my main.
All right. Same here.
My
I think
old
I'm
one
at
before
4.
Twitter.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was gonna say my old one before Twitter axed it was like right around like coming up on 600.
Yeah, I remember that was a fun account.
Yeah. I'm just, I think, at like 492 now on my current account. Though before, when I was active on Twitter 1.0, I believe I did get an account up to like I think it was almost 2,000 before they banned me for saying some obviously true but not Twitter friendly things to a journalist. A
So
quote unquote journalist.
my main account shows at 480 followers right now. I've gained about 20 over the past week, simply because of what happened on Wednesday, or was that Thursday? The
All right.
the
You're
Perry shooting
referring.
was Thursday.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, so we are done with this chuckle fuck, and we are going to head over into our next topic.
All right.
We are going to head into the Perry shooting, the Perry, Iowa shooting.
Specifically, school shooting.
And it looks like those
random, not just a general shooting.
Well, it was a school shooting.
Yeah.
It happened at the Perry, Iowa high school.
Where in Iowa is that, if you are aware?
Let me pull up a map for you.
All right. Is it nearby you, or is it like far?
It is, well, Perry, Iowa. It's 146 miles, I think. Directions from home. 147 miles. If I take Highway 30 over to Highway 169 down to Iowa 141.
So like an hour and a half to get there, or no, just a little bit more than like an hour to an hour and a half to get there.
2.5 hours. Highway 30 has several sections of highway where you can only do 55.
Oof.
And then same goes for Iowa Highway 141. You can only do 55 on that because it's a 2-lane. Anyways, so there were several newscasts, and we're gonna go through this one by one. Let me go ahead and pull this up. YouTube. So this is the very first time anything was said about the shooting in Perry.
And it looks like those officials in Perry, Iowa are getting ready to give an update now on that shooting again. So far, they have told us one person is dead at this shooting in Perry, Iowa. Very few details released other than that so far. Let's listen into what police are saying now.
Adam Infante, Infante. I'm the sheriff here in Dallas County. I'm joined by our state, local, and federal partners here at the Perry High School. This morning at approximately 7:37 a.m., we had a Sears radio activation at the high school, which indicated an active shooter situation. An officer first arrived within 7 minutes of that activation and located multiple gunshot victims. We're still unclear of exactly how many are injured or what the extent of those are, but we're working on that right now. There is no further danger to the public. The community is safe. We're just now working backwards, trying to figure out everything that happened and make notifications. There'll be another update later on today. It's still very early. This happened at approximately 7:37 this morning. School didn't start yet, luckily, so there was very few students and faculty in the building, which I think contributed to a good outcome in that sense. But we'll have more information later on this afternoon. We will not be releasing any more information in the meantime. So please be patient with us so that we can talk with these victims and their families and try and figure out what happened. We won't.
Okay, so at this point in the reporting, we know of one person dead. We also know of 3 people shot, but that's all we knew at that point.
Right.
There were further reports in between the morning and the afternoon, but none of them were actually hold on.
I would assume that at this point, this is the point in which some of my more right-wing friends would be saying things like, they're going to try to come for your gun. They're going to
Yes.
use this to try to take away your gun.
But
And our gun rights do not stop at this mass shooting.
by the time that this report, this had finished, this live interview or live press release had finished, there were already people on the left calling for the ban of assault weapons.
Yep. That fake turf.
They haven't even. Correct me if I'm wrong. Have they released like what the shooter was using?
They had not yet at that point. They did in the afternoon. And let me pull that up.
We'll go ahead and get started.
This is our governor, COVID Kim. She couldn't make up her mind back in 2020 and 2021 whether she wanted to lock down the state or not. She couldn't figure it out. So we call her COVID Kim.
Our hearts are heavy today.
Did she eventually side on the more lockdowny or the more less
she eventually went no lockdowns.
And our prayers are with the Perry community. This strikes at the heart of everything that we hold dear. This senseless tragedy has shaken our entire state to the core, and I want this community to know that every Iowan stands with you.
Kim, yes, while Iowans stand with the citizens in Perry, it did not shake me to my core. It did not surprise me. Because Iowa has been due for this for years.
They have?
Oh yeah, we border Illinois. We border Minnesota.
There's a different kind of bordering going on in Illinois right now.
When it comes down to it, you know, the states that are most affected by this hysteria that causes school shootings and mass shootings, it's the states that are closest that are also affected by it. So, you know, you've got Colorado,
right?
But that's a fairly isolated state.
Yeah.
But then you've got Texas, you got Florida. You know, you expect things to happen in the states nearby. Things have happened in South Carolina. Things have happened in Alabama. Things have happened in Georgia. And then, you know, you've got New York. Things have happened in New Jersey and Pennsylvania and Connecticut. You know, states that border these other states where, you know, a mass shooting has happened. They're often affected not too long later by these shootings. Illinois is like Chicago is like the mass shooter capital of the country. Chicago and LA.
Yeah.
And for a long period of time, the city I live in was called Little Chicago.
That does not bode well.
So we've been due for this. Iowa has been due for this for a long time. It doesn't surprise me in the slightest.
It's impossible to understand why anything like this happens. But again, I want you to know that we'll work tirelessly to get the answers so that we can prevent it from happening again. I want to take a moment this afternoon to recognize the immediate and courageous response of local law enforcement today and the incredible coordination between local police, first responders, the Dallas County Sheriff's Office, the Iowa State Patrol, DCI, ATF, and the FBI, and multiple healthcare providers.
I'm going to skip COVID Kim at this point because it's nothing but worthless platitudes. And
well,
she also said the thing, thoughts and prayers.
right. And it is not
Thinking ahead of time.
by this time are we to assume that all the people on the left have all been calling for the taking of the guns, all to quote the new president of Argentina, all the shit leftards have now been calling for people to lose their gun rights, and all the right-of-ways have now been calling for no one to lose their gun rights.
Yes.
It's
well, yes,
it's
and
been happening
no.
well up until they confirmed in this specific report. It's pretty much only been the left that has been saying take the guns.
All right, let's see how this turns out.
This is where things shift. This is where my tweet from Thursday comes in.
Thank you. I'm Chief Eric Vaughn from the Perry Police Department. I want to thank the quick actions of the Dallas County dispatchers who handled and dispatched the calls regarding this tragic event this morning. I also want to recognize the initial officers from the Perry and Dallas County Sheriff's Office and their actions on scene. Thank you to the massive response from agencies throughout the area, including EMS, for their assistance today. It is truly amazing to see first responders work together in these crisis situations. And I cannot forget to recognize the teachers, faculty, and students involved who acted bravely and heroically in this tragic situation. Thank you to the community support we have seen and we will continue to need in the future. All of our condolences to the victims and their families.
Okay, and call me a tinfoil hat conspiracist or conspiracy theorist, but something isn't right with this guy. Either he's never seen a dead body, or he has been directly affected by this shooting.
Yeah, he does seem traumatized.
You're gonna see him break very soon.
They need your thoughts and prayers, as well as time and space to process and to grieve. This community has been through tough times before and have rallied together. I'm sure this time will be no different. Thank you. I introduce Mitch Mortvet, DCI.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay, so that was the chief of police of Perry, and before he had finished, he had already broken. He was shuffling through papers and just trying to not completely break down. I think what we're going to find out is one of the kids that was shot was his child.
Right.
And I think it was the 6th grader that was shot. And we're about to find out about that in just a second.
My name's Mitch Mortvet. I'm an assistant director with the Iowa Division of Criminal Investigation. At 7:37 a.m., excuse me, on January 4th, 2024, the Perry Police Department responded to an active shooter event at Perry High School. Meanwhile, Dallas County Communications was also receiving multiple 911 calls of an active shooter at the high school. Perry police officers responded within minutes. They immediately made entry and witnessed students and faculty either sheltering in place or running from the school. Once inside, they located multiple individuals with gunshot wounds. Officers immediately attempted to locate the source of the threat and quickly found what appeared to be the shooter with a self-inflicted gunshot wound. As additional officers responded, a systematic search of the school took place. Officers located during the search of the school an improvised explosive device.
There was an IED. Let me back up a second.
And from what I heard, it was a rather poorly made IED at that.
Yes. Okay, so backing up here.
Immediately attempted to locate the source of the threat and quickly found what appeared to be the shooter with a self-inflicted gunshot wound. As additional officers responded, a systematic search of the school took place. Officers located during the search of the school an improvised explosive device. The State Fire Marshal and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms rendered the device safe. Numerous officers from multiple agencies were able to secure the school and verify no additional threats.
Okay, so IEDs and the shooter killed himself. We're about to get into the weapons that were found on the shooter.
At the same time, first responders were rendering aid to the victims who were later transported to area hospitals. The shooter has been identified as 17-year-old Dylan Butler, a student at Perry High School. Butler was armed with a pump-action shotgun and a small caliber handgun.
He had a SIG, and he had a pump-action shotgun. I assume it was a 9mm SIG.
So the things that even fucking the president is saying, just go out and get this instead of a AR.
Yep.
And I had ran into someone on Twitter right as this report was coming out saying ban assault weapons, and I'm like, he didn't use an assault weapon, or quote unquote an assault weapon. He used a pump action shotgun, a 7+1 shotgun, a fixed tubular magazine.
Not even semi-automatic.
Not even semi-automatic. Pump action.
Butler also made a number of social media posts in and around the time of the shooting. Law enforcement is working to secure those pieces of evidence.
Yeah, so he posted a bunch of crap just before. He had been posting, pictures of firearms that he had access to the days leading up to the shooting. And here's the interesting part about it. Dylan Butler was the child of the president of the Chamber of Commerce in Dallas County.
Interesting. Is that the county that Perry is in?
Yes.
All evidence thus far suggests that Butler acted alone. There are 6 victims, one of them who is deceased. That is
So 6 people shot besides the shooter, and one of the 6 people he shot is dead.
individual was a 6th grade student at Perry Middle School. The other 5 are being treated at area hospitals. 4 of the surviving surviving victims are students, and the 5th is a school administrator. The law enforcement response was swift and immediate. Roughly 150 officers from local, state, and federal agencies responded within the hour. The investigation in today's tragedy is ongoing. The Iowa Division of Criminal Investigation is serving as the lead investigative agency with assistance from the Perry Police Department, the Dallas County Sheriff's Office, the FBI, the ATF, and the Dallas County Attorney's Office. At this time, we will take a few questions.
Mitch, Philip Jones from the Register. I was told by the father of a student who was shot that his son witnessed Principal Dan Marburger be shot. Is he the administrator, and what is his condition?
The investigation's ongoing, and we're not releasing any other names other than Dylan Butler's name at this time.
Can you give us any indication as to motive for this? I know this is ongoing.
Anything into the background of him is part of the investigation, and we're obviously going to take a deep dive into that, but there's nothing that we can release at this time.
Where would you give us the status of the other 5 who are in the hospital? Are they stable? Are they critical?
At this time, it's my understanding, as of about an hour ago, 1 was in critical condition but appeared not to be life-threatening, and the other 4 are stable.
Okay, so 6 people shot, 5 went to the hospital in critical condition immediately. One was declared dead on scene.
Right.
4 of the 5 that went to the hospital, they were almost immediately categorized as stable. Which means I think that firearm was loaded with a mixed loadout. I think there was some birdshot, I think there was some buckshot, and I think there was 1 slug.
Why do you think that?
Well, the birdshot for older teenagers and adults, it's really only gonna pepper. It's gonna hurt.
I've seen an image of someone who was shot with birdshot. Absolutely, it would hurt, but it would not be anything like life-threatening.
It's going to have some superficial wounds. You're gonna bleed. You're gonna be in pain, but there's not going to be a lot of penetration. Buckshot is a bit bigger. Buckshot will penetrate more, but it's still not going to be as life-threatening as a slug.
Right.
Now, if there was buckshot and that 6th grader got hit with it, there's a high likelihood that would have killed that 6th grader. Buckshot or a slug would have killed the 6th grader. Right. I think the 6th grader may have gotten buckshot. I guarantee the administrator got buckshot. And that's why he was the one in critical condition.
Correct.
But stable. Or not life-threatening.
Well, still in the
what is the difference between critical and life-threatening?
Critical is it can go either way. But as you get further into after the wound has been inflicted and after, they've done or they've treated for the wound and the shock and the bodily trauma that you experience, as you go further out from actually experiencing the trauma, your condition stabilizes. If you're in critical condition and things look like they're going to stabilize and you're going to come out of it, they're going to keep you categorized as critical, but they're not going to be as worried about you. So life-threatening is you're critical and they don't know for certain if you're going to pull through.
Correct.
Critical and not life-threatening is you could still turn to life-threatening, but it looks right now like you're going to make it through just fine. So there may have been a slug, but I guarantee if there hadn't been, that 6th grader got hit with buckshot.
Right.
I think this is the interview where they talk about the shooter and the things that they had posted on social media. Let's see real quick.
Any racial motivation in this shooting, and are there any Latino victims?
As far as the ethnicity of the victims, I'm not sure. And there's nothing to indicate at this time that it had anything to do with race. As far as motive, again, that's part of the background investigation, and that's something that we're continuing to look into.
Sir, excuse me, there's a video online. Is there any credibility to this video naming this man as the shooter?
I haven't seen the video, and that I don't know at this time, but law enforcement is working to secure those pieces of evidence, as I mentioned in the statement, so there's nothing more that we can comment on about that.
This is the first time that we've heard someone from the middle school being involved in the shooting. Do you have an idea as to the path this suspect took?
It all happened in the Perry High School, and it was before school started, so there were not many students, and it's our understanding that there was a breakfast program going on, so there may have been students of different grades, if you will, in the school at that time. But it all was contained in the Perry High School, not in any of the other buildings.
How's it fired?
That's still part of the investigation. We're trying to determine that.
How sophisticated was the IED?
The explosive device?
I'm sorry, one of you?
The explosive device?
Yes.
What else can you tell us?
Not much about it, other than it was pretty rudimentary, and it was rendered safe by, like I said, the State Fire Marshal and the ATF.
Can I ask a question of the governor?
Sure.
Okay, so IED, rudimentary, rendered inert pretty much immediately. I didn't hear them talk about this, but Dylan Butler had come out as gender fluid throughout the pandemic, and that's where my tweet comes in. I will bring it up.
And while you're doing that, I want all our listeners to remember that dynamic we all agreed was going on from the left, from the right, about this shooting. And let's see if it stays the same course that it previously was staying.
Now, but before I bring up my specific tweet, I want to bring up this picture. Now you can't see the full picture in this, but at the top there's the Colorado Springs shooter, and at the bottom is the picture of what people claim was the Uvalde shooter. And I'll read this off from bottom to top, and I'll go through the discrepancies here. So it says Uvalde shooter identified as trans. The Uvalde shooter did not identify as trans, and the picture or the image in this picture of the shooter is not the shooter. This is a random Reddit user that came out immediately after the shooting with pictures of themselves on the other side of Texas, saying they were not involved and they were not the shooter. Next one up the list is the Nashville shooter. It says Nashville shooter identified as trans. Yes. Next one up is the Aberdeen shooter identified as trans. Yes. Next one up is the Denver shooter identified as trans. The Denver shooter was not a shooter. We went over this in an episode of the Anarchist Transmission podcast. It was the week after the Uvalde shooting. They were apprehended before they could carry out their threats because either their friend or their sister turned them into the police. They never shot anyone. They made the threats, but they didn't shoot anyone. There was no Denver shooting in this instance. And then the next one up from there was the Colorado Springs shooter identified as non-binary. And as Luna had commented when I posted this yesterday, she brought up the fact that the Colorado guy claimed to be non-binary at first to try to get out of being charged with a hate crime, but later admitted it was false. And she also said that's the same guy whose dad, in an interview, said that he would rather his kid be a murderer than gay.
Because it was a news interview with the father where they were talking to him. They had mentioned something about where he was, where the shooting was at, and the guy's first reaction was basically like, my son's not gay, is he? And then they're like, no, he shot up the place. And the father then went on like, oh, just as long as he's not gay.
Yeah, because if you remember, the Colorado Springs shooter shot up what was it, a gay club?
I think so.
It was like a gay club or a gay bar.
A gay club or a gay bar. It's so he was trying to get out of the hate crime charges. Let's see. But because I had found out that people were claiming that the Perry shooter was gender fluid, I posted up a tweet and I said, and here we go. They identified the shooter. Let me put this up. They identified the shooter. Be ready for incoming hate towards trans people that keep and carry firearms because someone has claimed that the shooter was gender fluid. They had not yet, when I posted this, confirmed in the press that he was gender fluid. I did not know that he claimed he was gender fluid. I only knew that someone was claiming he was gender fluid. And I posted this because of what happened last year after the Nashville shooting. Who remembers that?
I do.
Yep.
Okay. There were right-wing pundits that immediately came out, to including Cassandra McDonald, one of Tim Pool's employees, the chief editor on the news side of Tim Pool's company, saying that anyone and everyone on HRT should be banned from carrying a firearm. But what she didn't understand at the time is that it's not just trans people that are on HRT.
Yep.
Men can take HRT because they stop producing testosterone and they need to take testosterone. Women who go through menopause are often prescribed estrogen so that they don't age like fucking crazy after they go through menopause.
Yep.
Then there was Elijah Schaefer. There was some other person. There was Matt Walsh. There was Michael Knowles, Ben Shapiro. All these people came out and said trans people should be banned from carrying firearms. Some people tried to cover up their quote unquote transphobia by saying people with mental health issues shouldn't be allowed to carry firearms. And they learned from last year they're not supposed to say trans people, they're supposed to say mental issues. But what these people still don't understand is mental issues still do not bar you from owning and carrying a firearm. It's called the Fifth fucking Amendment. Does anyone
and it's also worth noting that mental issues is a very broad term.
Exactly, which is why the Fifth Amendment exists. Does anyone remember what the Fifth Amendment is?
Right to not incriminate yourself.
And the right to due process.
Yes.
It's the right against self-incrimination and the right of due process. In order for your rights to be removed, you must go through due process. They must take you through due process. There's a question on the background check, the 4473 that we all have to fill out when we purchase a firearm from an FFL. The question is, have you ever been adjudicated mentally defective or been involuntarily committed to a mental health institution? In order for you to be adjudicated mentally defective, you must be taken through the court system. You must be put in front of a judge, and there must be expert witness testimony saying that you don't understand wrong from right, your morals do not align with Western values, and because of this, you must be stripped of your rights. It's a very high standard that they have to meet in order to declare you mentally defective in a court of law. Like, you have to be either extremely mentally disabled, like you have to have late stages of dementia, or you have to be a complete sociopath that doesn't care about wrong or right.
Right.
That's
and
pretty much...
If you do check this box on that form, or do they then automatically deny you?
Yes, it's an automatic denial. Because you've gone through the court system. A court has found you either mentally defective or at some point had committed you to a mental health institution because someone had proven that you were a risk to yourself or to someone else. Like you were a threat against life or limb to yourself or someone else. That's the only way that you, besides being charged and convicted of a felony, that they can remove your rights.
So, if one was like 20 years ago, had to be involuntarily committed to like a mental asylum because they were like really suicidal or something, does that then mean they can never own a gun for the rest of their life?
So some states have sunset provisions. Obviously, this is federal, but states like New Hampshire, they put a limit on it for 7 years. Other states, they say it's indefinite. And so you have to go back to court and you have to prove that you are no longer a threat or you're no longer mentally defective.
So you can have the decision reversed.
Yes, you can have it reversed. But once that decision is in nix, it is a pain in the ass to get it fixed. But let's see. Most of the people that commented on this post that I made are our supporters. They are our friends. They understand this. They are Second Amendment absolutists. They understand that, hey, the universe is trying to kill us. It's not just people. It's everything. Everything in the universe is constantly trying to kill all life. We have the natural born right as simply existing in this universe to resist our own demise by any means necessary. So if another person tries to take your life, you have a natural born right, simply just by virtue of existence in this universe, to take their life instead.
Correct.
However, here's where things go. And this picture right here, this is what got me most of my followers last year. I had a lot of people follow me because of this picture.
Right.
So here we go. Here's the first shouldn't own guns. Liberals shouldn't own guns. Everyone should own guns. Everyone. If you are not in a mental health institution or you're not indefinitely in prison, you should own a gun. Plain and simple. Here's where we get into the fuckery. Greg, who is friends with many, many people that we're friends with, like Dracana, how the fuck is that any different than the hate you lefties spew at any white person that does this kind of thing? I've never spewed hate at white people that did this shit. And in fact, I've called every single mass shooter, every single school shooter out. I have said that they were before they committed the shooting, they were redeemable. Once you shoot people without provocation, without threat to your life, you are no longer redeemable. I made that clear last year. I made it clear the year before. I made it clear the year before that. I've made it clear ever since Columbine. It's never been an acceptable thing.
Right.
Simply because I say trans people should own guns doesn't mean I agree with a 17-year-old shooting up a fucking school. And my response was exactly as, it should be. You lefties, have you done any research on who I am? Paid attention to any of the people you've been replying to that know who I am? You're so far off base, you've been hypnotized into cult thought. I actually almost feel sorry for you. We've talked about this. We've talked about cult thought. And I've gone even more in depth since our hiatus on what cult thought is. You don't have to be in a cult to suffer from cult thought. And cult thought is most often presented in people who are either narcissists or suffer from narcissistic abuse disorder. Because you don't know how to deal with a person on the individual level. It's much easier to deal with individuals on the group level. Assume they all believe the same things. Which is what Greg is doing.
Yep.
Let's see. This guy. You know, we don't care if you have guns, but if you could stop killing kids, that'd be great. I'm not killing kids. I'm not pulling the trigger.
Yep. Did they
let's-
respond to your response?
Oh, yeah, they did. Why do you people ever... why? Do you people ever extend the same courtesy? Yeah, I do. There's no monoliths here. Monoliths do not exist. I don't say all white people are fucking mass shooters simply because one white person committed a mass shooting. That's a fucking ridiculous thing to say.
Yep.
Oh, and Travis Gerber. Most of you got in on this one.
Ah, yes. That
Mentally
fucking guy.
mentally ill people shouldn't have firearms, period. Let's see. The situation has nothing to do with my disgust for pedophiles, aka trans people. I'm not a pedophile. Stop. Stop it with your bullshit. It's much easier to demonize all law-abiding gun owners in the country instead of the individual who pulled the trigger. Yes, Paul, you're spot on. I don't know why I didn't catch that before. And then we get into the more egregious ones. Towards trans people, what about the hate they give? I give no hate. I don't hate. I've made this clear several times. I do not hate anyone. Well, I do. I have hate for a few people in the world. But to hate someone, you have to have done something egregious. So egregious towards me that I can put the time and the effort into hating you. Hating someone ages you horribly. So I said, you know, we aren't a monolith. Don't treat us as such. What? How about y'all stop shooting up places? I love how you couldn't even answer a simple question. I answered the question. I don't hate.
We're not the fuck. It's like we're not the fucking Borg. It's not like we all have this hive mind where one person pulls a trigger, all of a sudden everyone's done it.
Yeah. And old Boomer here is also, well, was also friends with several other people that we are friends with. To include...
Did that person lose some friends over this?
Yes. But it doesn't appear anyone else actually commented to them. This person says, trans people suffer from serious mental illness. They need inpatient psychological help, not puberty blockers, hormones, or surgery. Some of us do. I'm not saying we all do, but some of us do.
Sure.
And I said, then it's up to you to prove to a court on an individual basis for each trans person you find that they should be involuntarily committed. Until that time, I'm going to continue carrying. And I posted my picture. But his response is, no, it's been well known for decades that trans and their enablers are very sick motherfuckers who should be locked down. Progressives have broken the system, so we get these sick fucks doing this shit. If you want due process, if someone tries to disarm you, you have to use due process too. Let's see. Simon Kane said, you are really mind-fucked. Children are not allowed to carry handguns, ever. No one is allowed to enter a school with a handgun. So, go fuck off with your self-pity. Where did I say that children were allowed to carry or that anyone is allowed to enter a school with a firearm? I never said it.
Yep.
Oh, and Chris Buck here is also friends with Dracana and says, "Stop making excuses for murderers, you asshole." I didn't excuse anything.
Nope.
Let's see. He says, "You are right now." I didn't. I didn't. You can't point to me ever saying it, ever excusing it. I never have, and I never will. This person doesn't understand the difference between mental and moral.
Mm-hmm.
This person says, yes, because gender fluid is a mental condition. You have to be mentally bankrupt to shoot up a school. No, you have to be morally bankrupt to shoot up a school.
Yes.
Not to mention the school had gun-free zone signs posted that the student ignored when he brought the firearm to school. The pro-gay boy brought the firearm to the gun-free zone school and shot students, and you are still trying to blame it on responsible... I didn't blame shit on responsible gun owners, you piece of ever-loving shit.
Yeah.
I have advocated against leftists ever since all of this bullshit started.
Yeah, like, what? I'm somewhat fairly convinced that, like, at least 10% of Twitter is just outright illiterate. Like, they see something, they read it, they don't understand it, and then they just say nonsense at you. For no actual reason whatsoever, other than they just can't fucking read.
Well, next week we're gonna do a deep dive on cult thought, what causes it, and I had a tweet. I'll have to look for it, but I explained this in depth, and it's gonna take pretty much a full 2 hours to explain cult thought and what happens when you're involved in cult thought.
All right.
And of course, the final one, the one that I've been trying to get taken down ever since it got put up, was from Troglodyte. Luna, you remember this guy?
This is
maybe.
This is a person that me and Luna have gotten banned several times for this picture. What I would really hate is if a troon shot a bunch of kids. Imagine the damage to other troons. 41% yourself. And for anyone that doesn't understand what 41% is, it's a shit study that basically claimed 41% of all trans people kill themselves or attempt suicide.
Actually, it's usually taken completely out of context and used wrong because, excuse me, the guy that did that study, he hates how it's been used because of the fact that that is the amount of people that have had ideations, like it's where like the thought has just popped into their head. That isn't even the amount of people that have attempted or even the amount of people that have succeeded.
So it's just ideation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the And the ideation is what grants courts the ability to actually involuntarily commit you. Me and Uriel were talking about this yesterday with Stoner here, and we were talking about what it would take to have someone remove your rights. And Uriel had brought up the fact that if you're suicidal, you're suicidal. You're not going to kill someone else. And I had to explain to him that there is a very thin line between suicide and homicide. You can be pushed from either into the other one very quickly. For instance, when I was still in the Marine Corps, during the workup towards my unit's second deployment since I had been in the fleet, my daughter was born, and, you know, I was having a very hard time because I was not there for my daughter's birth. And so I was quickly becoming suicidal. Well, I walked into our tent, our comm tent, and a sergeant from Wires started talking shit about me, saying that I didn't know how to do my job, and those suicidal ideations quickly became homicidal. Now, I knew at that point I needed to seek help, and I did. I got put up in the Naval Hospital on the Balboa Navy base. I got put up for about a week in the psych ward on the Naval Hospital. And, you know, I sorted my shit out. I got out. They kept me away from that sergeant because, hey, guess what? That sergeant shouldn't have been talking shit because there were only 3 of us in that entire unit that knew anything about our jobs. And I had been doing networking since before he had even graduated high school. Now, this guy is like 7 or 8 years older than me. Which means he's been in the Marine Corps for at least 6 years. And I've been doing networking by that point in my life for about 12 years. I wasn't even a teenager when I started learning about networking. You do not tell me I don't know what I know. Because just a few months earlier, in February of 2012, we had gone on a field op in which I had laid a trap for our Marines in my section of comm to see if they could figure out what was wrong and why the network wouldn't come up. I knew this equipment inside and out. We had 2 switches on the not secret side of the network. So the unsecured side of the network. And at that point in time, Cisco had come out with technology where you could have a straight through Cat5 cable, and it would, the 2 devices would automatically switch pins so that they could still talk. If you know anything about networking, when you connect 2 like devices, so say 2 switches, 2 computers, 2 routers, when you connect them to each other, you're supposed to use what's called a crossover cable, which switches the 2 center pairs of wires. It switches the 2 center pairs of wires in the at one end of the cable. But because these young and unexperienced Marines had been taught that they didn't need to learn crossover cables, for 3 days our network was down. And one of those Marines had told me to just leave things alone because he could figure it out. And so I watched him and 3 other Marines in my unit just going through the programming for the switches, trying to figure out why they wouldn't talk. And after 3 days, our section chief, Staff Sergeant D'Amico, came in and said, "Hammer, fix this." And I did. I pulled one side of the cable, I cut off the tip, I re-tipped it crossover, plugged it back in, and everything came up.
So yeah. Since it's getting almost at the end of the stream, one thing I wanted to pull up. Can you pull up that math tweet I did? I think it's. I think it is worth.
Yes, the math tweet.
Yeah.
Let me see.
Even though we've already kind of shown that picture about all the shooters is kind of wrong, let us assume for the sake of argument, let us assume that picture was 100% correct. And in that frame, my tweet was framed in the assumption that it was 100% correct, even if it's not.
Yeah. So okay, I've got it pulled up, and I want to make clear, Ed was not trying to say that you're wrong when he replied to you. He was simply just asking for numbers.
Oh, fair enough.
I talked to him about it afterwards, and even he agreed. It came off a little bit asshole-ish.
Was that the one asking for a source?
Uh-huh.
I did give him the source.
Yes, I know you did, but you didn't like it. And
fair enough. Yeah.
I talked to him because I wanted to confirm that he wasn't trying to be an asshole and that we shouldn't read that into it.
No, all right, fair enough then. I don't think I knew that person, but I will. I did think he was just kind of trying to be a dick, but I will assume good faith from now on.
Yeah. So I'll read it off. Time for some basic math and statistics. Currently, around 20% of all school-aged kids identified with some sort of LGBTQ+. A lot of that is probably nonsense, but it is what it is. So 1 in 5. That means they should statistically make up about 1 in 5 school shooters, which, assuming these 5 all happened last year, that would mean for them to fall into the normal range of distribution for school shooters, there would have to be 25 mass shootings. In order for them to be overrepresented, the number of school shootings would have to be less than 25. There were 37 incidents classified as school shootings in 2023.
Yes. So what that means is they're actually noticeably underrepresented in the classification of mass shootings.
Yeah, about 1 in 8.
Yeah. So make of that what you will.
If these were all correct, but also take into account that only 4 of these happened last year.
Right.
The Uvalde shooter was 2022.
Oh, it's been that long.
Yeah.
And wasn't the Pulse one even further, like
Pulse was
even longer ago?
Oh, that was I think so. Well,
Yeah,
that was the Pulse nightclub shooting.
Yeah, the Pulse nightclub shooting was 2016.
Yeah, I think that was a different. That was not the recent gay club shooting. That was the the Islamist who shot up some gay
Yes,
bar in Florida. I think it was in
it
2016.
was.
Yeah, this was a different
Oh,
gay
that's
bar
right.
shooting.
That's
and
right.
that was that was not categorized as a hate crime because he was Islamic.
Yeah, when a jihadist shoots up a gay bar, oh no, that's fine. It's perfect. It's perfectly acceptable. No hatred there whatsoever. It's just a peaceful, fiery yet mostly peaceful building throwing off of.
Jesus Christ.
It's a mostly peaceful insurrection.
Yes.
Again, for anyone and everyone that is watching this or will in the future watch this, this is being filmed on January 6th, 2024, the third anniversary of the January 6th quote unquote insurrection, which was a mostly peaceful protest.
Happy Insurrection Day.
Well, Happy Insurrection Day is more like July 4th.
Yeah. This was more Happy Fedsurrection Day.
Happy 21st century Insurrection Day.
Yes.
Oh, wait.
As I said, Happy Fedsurrection Day.
Happy Fedsurrection Day. Oh, wait. That being said, we are at 6:56 in the evening, and I am about to get out of here. Is there anything that anyone else would like to bring up that we need to talk about before we leave?
Yeah, I do actually want to bring up something. It literally just like came up as of yesterday. So here in Ohio, Ohio Governor Mike DeWine, as far as like trans healthcare for adults, is basically trying to screw everything over, make everything harder. So as it is currently, you can basically go to like a trans clinic where you speak with professionals that know the endocrinology of it, the risk assessment, everything like that, and get your meds from like one doctor or like nurse practitioner, right?
Yep.
Ohio Mike DeWine has just implemented something that is going to be going into effect where it would require you to have a doctor, a separate endocrinologist, and like a bioethicist in order to get any form of HRT, even as an adult.
So
I don't.
I think the most ridiculous thing about that I've heard is so right like the week or 2 weeks before doing this, he had just vetoed the bill that was gonna ban this stuff for minors.
Yeah.
So what he's doing is it's okay if children do it, but it's not okay if adults do it. What?
This will affect everyone, including kids. So it's like, okay, it's okay for kids to get HRT, but everyone has to go through these bullshit loopholes of like trying to figure everything out.
Yeah, I do not see this going very far. I would hope that someone would file a federal lawsuit and file for an emergency injunction on this law.
Because the way it stands, like for example, you and then also in order to get on any sort of medical intervention, i.e. HRT, it says that you would have to be seen by a psychologist. Excuse me, I forgot. It would also require that all trans people receiving HRT requires to see a psychologist. But in order to get on HRT, you would have to have seen one for an extensive period of time, which these types of like laws and rulings usually have it about like you have to see a therapist and have them essentially diagnose diagnose you with, quote, gender identity dysphoria or like gender identity disorder for about 2 years before they're even legally allowed to put you on HRT.
Yeah, you can follow those sort of rules when it comes to minors. I understand those sorts of rules when it comes to minors.
Yeah.
When it comes to adults that have been on HRT for longer than 6 months, this is detrimental to their health. It's a death sentence.
Yeah, literally, like once you're on HRT and you've been on HRT for like quite a while, for example, like with me for years, going off of HRT due to like, for example, not being able to get all the required doctors, psychologists, licensed people, like having to go off is actually medically detrimental.
Right. Does this apply to only new people seeking it, or does this also affect
Everyone.
It applies to everyone. We will revisit this come next week. It will be our
Okay,
first. It will be our first topic.
I might not be able to make it in next week due to my job schedule, but
Okay. Could you do me a favor then?
yes.
Could you see if Rena is willing to join us?
Yeah, I can absolutely ask her that.
Because I know she's just kind of down and out since she quit her last job and is still looking for work. So I know she's got the time.
Yeah, she has time.
For who?
Luna's roommate.
Ah, I see.
Okay. With all of that said, we have 2 topics for next week. I will get everything scheduled and built out. I would like to thank everyone for joining us. I will start off with Stoner. Thank you for being here. Please say good night to everyone.
Night, everyone. Y'all take care.
Thank you, Stoner. You have a good night with Z. Then I will move to our resident of the state that doesn't exist, Luna. Say good night, Luna.
Good night.
And last,
although for me it's more of a good morning.
And last but not least, our resident Kanakistani, our dirty Frenchy Frenchman, Dale. Please say goodnight, Dale.
As always, ladies and gentlemen, it has been a blast being here with you these past 2 hours. And with that, I would just like to say au revoir, good night, see you on the next episode.
And with all of that, they are muted, and I'm going to leave everyone with the music that we came in with. I hope everyone has a good night. We will see you next week.